Welcome to Sleeping Times, your cozy and serene haven in the vast universe of stories that weave historical facts with a soft and comforting veil of tranquility, designed especially for those precious moments when you want to learn something new while relaxing deeply, letting the weight of the day dissipate like mist at dawn and inviting sleep to arrive like a gentle wave on the beach at sunset. Imagine yourself now settled in a place that seems tailor-made for you. Perhaps a soft bed with fresh and light sheets that wrap around your body like a familiar and loving embrace. The room enveloped in a soft and comforting dimness, with the light from a bedside lamp casting gentle and dancing shadows on the walls, painted in neutral and calming tones, or perhaps just the distant glow of a full moon filtering through half-open curtains, creating an environment where each breath becomes slower, more rhythmic, more deep, inviting the body to release the accumulated tensions of the day, muscle by muscle, thought by thought, until the mind floats free like an autumn leaf in the wind, light and free of worries. Here, there is no rush, no noisy interruptions or distractions from the outside world that so overwhelms us, just narratives that flow like a calm and winding river through ancient valleys covered in moss, taking you along paths of the past that subtly illuminate the present and calm the mind for a restorative night's sleep, where knowledge settles in as a silent and welcome companion, enriching your dreams without effort or fatigue, as if each word were a seed planted in fertile and moist soil, sprouting into quiet insights during the early morning hours, nourishing the soul while the body rests. Did you know that the Santa Claus we know today, that gentleman with a fluffy white beard like fresh and pure snow, falling in soft and wavy curls over a vibrant red coat like ripe cherries from a sunny and abundant summer, and a flying sleigh that cuts through the starry skies like a dream come true on a starry and magical winter night, began as a 4th century Turkish bishop, a simple and devout man named Nicholas of Myra, whose life was woven with humble gestures in a land of ancient and eternal contrasts. He lived in an era of great transformations and turmoils, where the Roman Empire, with its paved roads of eternal stones that connected distant cities like veins of a colossal body, and aqueducts that challenged the skies with graceful and imposing arches, still echoed its last sighs of glory and power, and the Christian faith spread like a soft and persistent breeze across the Mediterranean, touching hearts in white stone villages and temples hidden among olive trees twisted by time. Nicholas, with his generous heart and hands calloused from the daily work of prayer and service to the needy, performed acts of anonymous kindness that seemed straight out of an ancient and timeless tale. On dark and cold winter nights, when the sea wind whispered ancient secrets through the narrow streets of Myra, he tossed gold coins through the windows of poor and desperate families, helping them overcome misery without them knowing who the invisible benefactor was, a gesture of compassion that echoed like a whisper in the silence of the night, without fanfare or public recognition, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that a life had been eased. These discreet gestures, made under the mantle of the starry night and the veil of humility, planted the seeds of a legend that would echo for centuries, transforming a simple and pure act of human compassion into something much greater, a narrative that would travel through turbulent oceans and unknown lands, absorbing colors and forms from distant cultures like a river that enriches itself with tributaries along its course. The journey of this transformation is nothing less than epic and captivating. An odyssey that spanned 1,700 years of human history, full of wars, rebirths, and discoveries, crossed turbulent oceans loaded with merchant ships, rocking to the rhythm of the waves, full of hopes for new beginnings and fears of the unknown, absorbed ancient Dutch traditions with their community parties around crackling and welcoming fireplaces, where the air filled with the sweet aroma of spiced cookies, and laughter echoed like soft bells, was reimagined by American writers in rooms illuminated by flickering candles, with goose quills dancing over yellowed and ink-stained papers, and became one of the most recognized symbols on the planet, present in homes from all corners, from icy cabins in Siberia with their smoking chimneys to illuminated apartments in New York with trees blinking colorful lights. But how exactly did a Mediterranean saint with his simple woolen tunic woven by hand and his life of quiet and contemplative devotion transform into the jovial figure that visits malls crowded with twinkling lights and appears in millions of homes every December, filling chimney stockings with surprises that make hearts beat stronger and eyes sparkle with childlike expectation? This is a rich and multifaceted story, woven with threads of pure and selfless generosity, touches of magic that challenge everyday logic and invite the imagination, elements of commerce that shape our modern societies with their gleaming showcases and captivating advertisements, and the incredible human capacity to transform traditions through time, adapting them like clay in skillful and patient hands so that they serve new generations, keeping the essence alive while renewing with the passing of the eras. Breathe deeply now, feel the air filling your lungs slowly and completely, letting each inhalation bring a sensation of peace and renewal, and allow this narrative to unfold like a soft and warm blanket over you, enveloping your thoughts in a gentle and welcoming embrace of curiosity. If you want to learn history while relaxing, letting the worries of the day slip away like raindrops on a window fogged by soft and calming humidity, subscribe now to receive stories like this every week. Narratives that not only inform with precise and fascinating facts, but also calm the restless mind, inviting sleep to arrive softly, like a night breeze that caresses the leaves of the trees on a serene night. Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment below saying where you're watching us from. Perhaps from a rainy city in Europe, with the sound of rain tapping on the window panes like a hypnotic and rhythmic beat, from a sunny beach in Brazil, where the sea murmurs ancient secrets to the golden sand under the setting sun, or from a cozy apartment in some distant place, with the distant hum of the city outside turning into a comforting and reassuring white noise. It's always amazing to see how our community is spread across the world, connected by these stories that transcend geographical distances and time zones, creating an invisible bond of shared curiosity and collective tranquility, where each comment is like a star added to the night sky of our shared conversation. Now, how about turning off the lights slowly, feeling the soft click of the switch echoing in the silence of the room? Feel the weight of your body settling into the soft and inviting mattress. Find a comfortable position where every muscle can relax completely, the shoulders falling like leaves in the wind, the legs extending in total surrender, and prepare to discover, step by step, how a 4th century bishop, with his life of simplicity and unwavering faith, became the global symbol we know as Santa Claus. A figure that, in its deepest essence, continues to remind us of the transformative power of human kindness, of the generosity that unites hearts across time and space, inviting us to dream of a world where the magic of compassion is still possible. The 4th century was an era of profound contrasts and transformations that shaped the known world like a tapestry woven with threads of glory and decline, of emerging faith and faltering empires, a time when the Mediterranean sun shone over ancient lands, but long shadows stretched across the horizon of the future. Imagine yourself now, breathing slowly as you close your eyes, feeling the warm and dry air of the ancient Near East fill your lungs, laden with the subtle aroma of century-old olive trees whose silver leaves whisper in the wind, and the earthy scent of rocky soil heated by the relentless sun, a place where the Aegean Sea met the rocky coast of Asia Minor, creating a scene of rustic and eternal beauty. Myra, a small port city in the Roman province of Lycia, in what is now Turkey, was one of those forgotten corners of the empire, a bustling harbour where wooden ships with sails swollen by the wind brought goods from distant lands. Golden grains from Egypt, fine fabrics from Persia, ruby wines from Greece, and carried away the fruits of local labour, like olive oil pressed in stone presses and dried fish that sustained Roman legions in distant campaigns. But beneath this facade of trade and relative prosperity, everyday life was marked by hardships that tested human resilience. Droughts that cracked the earth like old skin, sudden floods that inundated narrow mud streets, and poverty that seeped into adobe houses like an invisible mist, leaving families struggling to survive on thin bread and brackish water from the communal well. Breathe deeply and visualize the streets of Myra, paved with irregular stones that echoed the rhythmic step of worn leather sandals, flanked by humble houses of sun-dried mud bricks, with carved wooden doors opening onto inner courtyards where women washed clothes in terracotta basins, the sound of water slapping against metal, mixing with the distant clucking of chickens and the murmur of conversations in Greek and Latin. The Roman Empire, in its twilight, still exerted its authority through distant governors and legions patrolling dusty roads, but the central power in Rome or Constantinople seemed increasingly remote, like a faint echo of a glorious past, leaving provinces like Myra at the mercy of heavy taxes that crushed the poor and enriched the few. It was in this world of glaring inequalities and growing uncertainties that Nicholas was born around 270 AD into a middle-class family, not nobles, but prosperous enough to own a small estate with olive trees and vineyards that produced oil and grapes for the local market, a home where the air smelled of fresh bread baked in clay ovens and the sound of family laughter echoed at dusk under the sky tinted orange by the setting sun. Nicholas grew up in an environment of nascent Christianity, a religion spreading like an underground fire through the empire, challenging the pagan gods of grand temples with marble columns and golden statues, but also facing sporadic persecutions from emperors who saw this new faith as a threat to the established order. His parents, Epiphanius and Johanna, were devout, educating him from an early age in the teachings of Jesus. Stories of miracles like the multiplication of loaves and fishes, parables of kindness like the Good Samaritan helping the injured stranger on the road, and the central commandment to love your neighbor as yourself, a principle that rooted itself in young Nicholas's heart like a seed in rich soil. When a devastating plague swept the region, taking his parents while he was still young, Nicholas found solace in faith, donating his inheritance to the local church, a simple stone building with faded frescoes on the walls, where monks in brown tunics sang psalms at dawn, the sound of their voices echoing like a balm for his wounded soul. He became a pupil of a local bishop, learning not only theology and sacred scriptures, but also the art of practical compassion, visiting the sick in their straw beds, distributing bread to the hungry in long lines under the scorching sun, and praying for the lost, always with a humility that distinguished him from the more vain leaders of the time. At 30 years old, Nicholas was ordained Bishop of Myra, a position that placed him at the head of a small but devoted community, responsible for guiding souls in turbulent times. When Emperor Diocletian ordered persecutions that closed churches and exiled clerics, forcing Nicholas to hide in rocky caves by the seaside, where the sound of waves crashing against the stones became his constant companion, a reminder of God's eternity amid human fragility. Surviving these trials, he emerged stronger, dedicating his life to acts of charity that would become legendary, gestures that seemed like everyday miracles in an era of scarcity. One of the most touching stories, passed down from generation to generation like a sacred whisper, tells of a poor family with 3 daughters of marriageable age, but without a dowry to attract suitors, condemned to a life of servitude or worse. Nicholas, touched by their misery, waited for the new moon night, when darkness enveloped the city like a mantle, and tossed 3 bags of gold through the open windows of the house, one for each daughter, the sound of the coins falling on the dirt floor, echoing like a divine signal, allowing the coins to roll to the young women's feet, who woke the next day with tears of gratitude and renewed hope. He did this anonymously without seeking praise or reward, repeating the gesture on other nights, always under the veil of the night, where the wind carried the aroma of sea salt and wildflowers, symbolizing generosity that doesn't need applause to shine. These acts were not isolated. Nicholas was known for his defense of the innocent, intervening in unjust trials with firm but compassionate words, as when he saved 3 innocent men from execution, praying fervently until the executioner lowered his sword, a moment that would spread as legend, painted in golden icons in later churches. He also cared for sailors, patron of navigators, blessing ships before they set sail for the sea, touching the timbers with hands that seemed to carry the strength of the waves, and miracles attributed to him calmed storms, saving lives at sea where the sky opened in thunder and the sea rose like living mountains. His life was a tapestry of quiet service, marked by fasts that thinned his body like a candle, prayers that filled the cathedral air with sacred silence, and kindness that extended to animals, feeding hungry birds with breadcrumbs during harsh winters, when snow covered the hills like a white and pure mantle. Nicholas died around 343 AD in an era of transition when Emperor Constantine had legalized Christianity, allowing bishops like him to emerge from the shadows to lead openly, but his death was simple, in a straw bed in his episcopal residence, surrounded by faithful who wept softly, the air laden with the smell of incense burning in bronze braziers. His tomb in Myra became a pilgrimage site where devotees came to touch the cold stone, whispering prayers for protection on journeys or help in times of need, and miracles attributed to him, like miraculous oil flowing from his tomb, smelling of fresh roses and healing the sick, solidified his reputation as the patron saint of the poor, children, and sailors. But what began as a life of local devotion soon spread, carried by pilgrims and sailors who told their stories in distant ports, planting the seeds of a legend that would travel through centuries, transforming a humble bishop into a figure of eternal generosity, an echo of human kindness that still resonates in our winter nights. Think about it as you settle more comfortably, feeling the mattress yield softly under your weight, the silence of the room deepening like a calm ocean. How a simple act of kindness, done in secret, can echo through time, inspiring generations to follow Nicholas's example, a man who lived with an open heart in a world of shadows, leaving a legacy of light that still illuminates our winter nights. The Mediterranean Sea in the 11th century was a stage of incessant movements and intertwined destinies, a vast body of capricious blue water that served as the vital vein of the ancient world, connecting distant ports with the constant flow of wooden ships that cut through the waves like arrows from an invisible and eternal bow, laden with exotic goods, revolutionary ideas, and stories that spread like seeds in the salty wind, planting roots in faraway lands. Imagine yourself now, inhaling deeply the salty and invigorating air of the ancient sea, feeling the spray of the waves splashing your skin like drops from a refreshing and vivifying bath as you visualize these legendary ships. Sturdy hulls of aged and time-curved oak, ochre and red linen sails swollen by the steady north wind, and polished and smooth wooden oars dipping rhythmically into the turquoise and sparkling water, creating a hypnotic sound of splash and creak that echoed for miles, mixing with the distant cry of gulls circling the tall masts like winged sentinels. Myra, with its bustling harbour and steep descending streets leading down to the salt-worn stone dock, was a natural and inevitable starting point for hardened sailors and devout pilgrims, men with sunburned skin and hands calloused from thick and rough ropes, who set out in search of lucrative trade or deep devotion, risking furious storms that turned the sky into a threatening and ominous mantle, and the sea into a roaring monster with primordial fury, or treacherous calms that left the ships paralyzed under a merciless and scorching sun, where the water stretched like an infinite and endless mirror, reflecting an empty sky that tested the patience and sanity of those on board. It was in this scenario of unpredictable maritime adventure and tireless itinerant faith that the relics of Saint Nicholas began their epic journey north, a sacred and urgent migration driven by growing fears of barbarian invasions and the fervent desire to preserve the legacy of a saint who already inspired devotion beyond the narrow borders of Lycia, touching hearts in distant lands like a divine whisper carried by the wind. After Nicholas's death, around 343 AD, his tomb in Myra became a beacon of everyday and extraordinary miracles, a sacred place where the faithful gathered in long and silent lines under the hot sun or fine rain, touching the cold and worn stone of the sarcophagus with trembling and hopeful fingers, whispering prayers for healing from diseases that consumed the body like slow fire, protection on dangerous journeys through treacherous seas, or simply inner peace in times of affliction. The air, around laden with the persistent smell of incense burning in polished bronze braziers and the constant murmur of prayers in ancient Greek and Latin, like a river of sacred words flowing to the infinite and starry sky. But the 11th century brought shadows of imminent and inescapable danger, with the Seljuk Turks advancing like an inexorable and implacable tide over Byzantine lands, conquering fortified cities and venerated temples with the ferocity of warriors mounted on swift and indomitable horses, their armor gleaming under the scorching sun of the east, threatening to profane sacred sites with iconoclastic fury and destroy relics that represented the living essence of Christian faith, turning symbols of hope into dust under horses' hooves. The monks of Myra, in brown tunics worn by time and daily use, eyes full of quiet determination and hands marked by years of prayer and manual labor, knew they could not, under any circumstances, let their patron's body fall into hostile and profane hands. He who had protected the innocent in life with anonymous acts of kindness deserved eternal protection in death, an invisible shield against the approaching darkness. Thus, in 1087, a group of Italian sailors from Bari, a vibrant and cosmopolitan port city on the Adriatic coast of Italy, sailing in agile and well-built galleys with prows adorned with painted blue eyes to ward off evil and malevolent spirits, arrived in Myra under the innocent pretext of routine trade, but with a secret mission burning in their hearts like an inextinguishable and devoted flame. They negotiated with the local monks in shaded and cool rooms of the main church, the air heavy with the persistent smell of melted candle wax in iron candlesticks and ancient parchments unrolled on dark and time-marked wooden tables, convincing them with passionate arguments and solemn promises that the relics would be safe in Bari, far from the threatened and unstable borders, where they could be venerated in a new and grand basilica, with marble columns imported from Carrara shining in the sun, vivid frescoes on the walls that would tell the saint's story to future generations, and a central altar where the miraculous oil could flow freely to the faithful. On the night of the exhumation, under a starry sky without a waxing moon, when the harbour was quiet except for the constant lapping of waves against mossy stone piers and the distant song of crickets hidden in the olive trees, the sailors and monks opened the tomb with rusty iron tools, the sound of metal against stone echoing like a whispered secret in the sacred night's silence, revealing the bones wrapped in time and moisture-faded fabrics, exuding a sweet and inexplicable aroma of miraculous oil, as if the saints still breathed the essence of holiness and divine grace, a perfume that filled the air like jasmine flowers on a spring morning. With silent reverence and trembling hands of emotion, they placed the bones in reinforced wooden boxes with forged iron strips, sealed with hot wax that smelled of pure honey and pine resin, and carried them to the ships under the mantle of deep darkness, the weight of the relics pressing on their shoulders like a sacred and honorable burden, while the sea murmured approval in soft and rhythmic waves, as if the ocean itself knew the eternal destiny of those precious remains. The return journey was an odyssey of imminent dangers and unexpected wonders, with the ships cutting through the Mediterranean waters under favorable winds that filled the sails like lungs inspired by a superior force, but also facing violent storms that made the sky open in furious and blinding lightning and the sea rise in walls of emerald green and foaming water, testing the unwavering faith of the sailors who prayed to Saint Nicholas for immediate protection, feeling a calming and protective presence amid the deafening chaos, as if the saint guided the invisible helm with an invisible hand, calming the rebellious waves and steering the course to safe waters. Upon docking in Bari after weeks of trials, the city exploded in a jubilant and spontaneous celebration, with bells ringing in high and ancient towers echoing across the bay, crowds gathering in narrow and irregular cobblestone streets, the air perfumed with aromatic incense and fresh flowers thrown at the feet of the exhausted sailors, who were received as divine heroes and messengers from heaven, carrying the relics in a solemn procession through streets adorned with hand-woven colorful tapestries and flickering torches that illuminated ecstatic faces and eyes full of tears of devotion. The Basilica of Saint Nicholas was erected quickly and with fervent devotion, a majestic building of light and luminous stone quarried from nearby sites, with rounded domes rising against the sky like celestial crowns, where the bones were placed in a gleaming gold and silver altar, and miracles began to happen immediately and prodigiously. The blind regaining sight upon touching the jewel-ornamented box, the sick rising from beds of chronic pain with smiles of gratitude and renewed vigor, and pilgrims coming from distant and exotic lands to drink the manna, a liquid and viscous oil that formed over the bones like sacred dew, smelling of fresh roses and pure honey, considered an elixir of healing that cured wounds of the tormented soul and debilitated body, restoring hope in weary hearts. This striking and providential relocation marked the beginning of the global and irresistible spread of devotion to Saint Nicholas, transforming him from a local and beloved saint into a universal and eternal icon, whose stories spread along busy trade routes and devout pilgrimages, reaching northern Europe through Flemish and Dutch merchants who navigated icy rivers and stormy seas with unyielding determination, carrying not only fine silk and spicy seasonings from eastern lands, but also tales of miracles that warmed hardened hearts in long and harsh winters, where snow covered the landscapes like a white and silent mantle. In cold and shadowy lands where the sun barely rose on the horizon for endless months, Nicholas's figure adapted gracefully, gaining traits of a protector against the biting cold and oppressive darkness, a gift-giver who arrived on the deep winter night to bring warm light and genuine joy, as if the saint from the sunny south, with his mantle of unpretentious generosity, dressed in thick furs and padded boots of the icy north to fit the new, hostile environment, becoming a beacon of hope amid the frost. Think about it as you feel the weight of your eyelids becoming heavier and irresistible, the room filling with a deep and comforting silence like a maternal embrace. How a journey through the agitated sea can carry not only ancient and sacred bones, but the immortal essence of a tradition that reinvents and flourishes in unexpected and cold soils, inviting us to reflect on how our own stories travel through storms and calms, transforming in unknown and distant worlds, but always carrying the seed of eternal kindness. The crossing of the Atlantic in the 17th century was not a journey for the faint of heart, or for those who feared the deep and unpredictable unknown. It was an odyssey of unyielding courage and iron determination, a test of resilience that separated the ethereal dreamers from those who truly dared to change their lives forever, leaving behind the known to embrace the vast and unexplored with open arms and resolute spirit. Imagine yourself now closing your eyes for a moment and feeling the subtle and hypnotic sway of an ancient wooden ship, the constant and comforting creak of the planks under your feet, like the beating heart of a living and pulsing creature, the salt of the sea, permeating the air you breathe with a bitter and invigorating taste, mixed with the damp and earthy smell of soaked ropes and wet wood that seeped into every crack and pore, creating an atmosphere of total isolation where the outside world was reduced to an infinite horizon of blue water and vast sky. These Dutch merchant ships, with their broad and deep hulls like the protective belly of a giant and majestic whale, were built for relentless efficiency and unquestionable durability, not for the comfort of the passengers. Designed to carry heavy loads of finely colored fabrics woven in noisy industrial looms, spicy and aromatic seasonings brought from distant and exotic eastern routes, and iron tools forged in smoking and hot forges, maximizing every cubic centimeter of available space, and leaving only the bare minimum for the humans who inhabited them, turning the hold into a claustrophobic labyrinth of crates tied with thick ropes and rolling barrels that moved with the sway of the waves. For 6, 8, sometimes even 10 endless and exhausting weeks, entire families were confined to this floating and isolated world, where the acrid and persistent smell of sweaty bodies mixed with the sour and nauseating stench of vomit caused by the incessant and inevitable seasickness and the constant humidity, like an eternal and sticky fog that seeped into every crack and fabric, made clothes heavy and stuck to the skin, a constant and inescapable reminder that the sea forgave no weaknesses or illusions of control, demanding that each passenger adapt to the merciless rhythm of the waves that rose and fell like living and unpredictable mountains, testing not only the body but the soul in its deepest essence. Breathe slowly and visualize the cramped and uncomfortable bunks in the dark and poorly ventilated holds, where daylight filtered only as a faint and diffuse glow through tiny and salt-crusted portholes, creating dancing and elongated shadows that seemed like ghosts whispering ancient secrets of the deep and mysterious ocean. The constant sway of the ship, driven by waves that rose like green and foaming hills, making it impossible to maintain balance for more than a few unstable seconds. Every step was a struggle against treacherous and capricious gravity, and larger waves made the wooden structure groan and crack like old bones under intense and continuous pressure. Sounds that echoed in the damp holds and made even the most courageous experienced sailors wonder, in deep and reflective silence, if the ship would withstand the wild fury of the Atlantic, a vast and merciless ocean known as the Path of Tears for so many who set out in search of a better and prosperous life, but found only trials that tested the limits of the human soul, forging character amid the chaos of turbulent waters. But these Dutch families, with their deep and unshakable roots in the lowlands, reclaimed from the sea, with sweat, ingenuity, and generational perseverance carried with them more than trunks full of practical and durable clothes woven by hand on family looms during long winter nights illuminated by flickering candles, rusty iron tools forged in workshops full of sparks flying like shooting stars, and sweat flowing like rivers of effort, and precious seeds of vibrant and colourful tulips that promised fields blooming in shades of red and yellow, and resilient vegetables that ensured abundant and nutritious harvests in the virgin and fertile soils of the New World, lands that seemed like a distant and promised paradise, full of infinite possibilities. They carried living and pulsing memories, like golden and resilient threads woven into an ancestral and eternal tapestry. Memories of cozy and leaning houses along serene and mirrored canals like veins of calm and hypnotic water, where the water reflected the blue and cloudy sky like an infinite and calming mirror, of gigantic and majestic windmills turning lazily against the vast and open horizon, their wooden arms cutting the air with a rhythmic and hypnotic hum that marked the time of the seasons like a natural and reliable clock, the sound echoing through flat and green fields like a hymn to human perseverance. They remembered the Sinterklaas celebrations, those magical and enveloping December nights where the entire community gathered in halls warmed by crackling and welcoming fireplaces, the air perfumed with the sweet and tempting aroma of freshly baked speculoos in hot brick ovens, warm spices like finely ground cinnamon, and whole cloves dancing in the rising and aromatic steam, and laughter echoing like soft and joyful bells, as eager children with sparkling eyes placed their polished and worn leather shoes near the smoking chimney, waiting for surprises that symbolized the eternal generosity of the patron saint, a gesture that united generations in a cycle of expectation, gratitude, and deep connection, strengthening bonds that the sea could not break. These memories were like solid and unbreakable emotional anchors, woven into the stories told by their grandparents around polished and time-marked oak tables, stories that stretched back through centuries like a golden and shining thread, connecting the distant and mythical past to the immediate and tangible present, passed from grandfather to father on winter nights where the wind howled outside like a solitary and hungry wolf. But the human warmth inside the house was unshakable and comforting, from mother to daughter on summer afternoons, with the sun filtering through colorful and shining stained glass windows, painting the floor with soft rainbows. And when, finally, after weeks of constant and exhausting maritime torment, they sighted the American coast, a dark and mysterious line on the horizon that gradually resolved into dense and ancient forests of autumn leaves in shades of burning red and gleaming gold, beaches of golden sand speckled with broken shells and dried seaweed, and eventually the small settlement of Nieuw Amsterdam, with its simple and rustic wooden houses built from local logs, flags fluttering in the fresh autumn wind, like signals of hope. These memories and stories were all they had to cling to their identity in a completely new and strange world, a place where the soil was firm, but the sky seemed wider and infinite, where the rivers ran free and wild without canals to guide them or dikes to contain them, where the air carried the fresh and resinous smell of tall and imposing pines instead of the familiar salty scent of the North Sea, an aroma that promised freedom but also challenged rooted and cherished traditions, inviting a gradual reinvention. Nieuw Amsterdam in the mid-17th century was a small but vibrant enclave of everyday life and renewed hope, built on the southern tip of Manhattan Island, a piece of land that extended like a finger pointing toward the vast and open Atlantic Ocean, a natural protected harbor where ships from all corners of the world docked to exchange varied goods and colorful stories, the air filled with the sound of wooden cranes creaking with effort and voices in multiple languages negotiating prices with animated gestures. The geography there was radically different from everything the Dutch knew in their homeland. Instead of flat and meticulously reclaimed plains from the sea with mud and stone dikes guarding against treacherous and frequent floods, there were gentle and undulating hills covered by dense and ancient forests of sturdy and centuries-old oaks, tall and leafy walnut trees and chestnut trees laden with brown and nutritious fruits, trees whose roots intertwined in the moist and rich soil like veins of a living and pulsing land full of wildlife and promises. Instead of carefully dug canals for efficient drainage and smooth transportation, with flat-bottomed boats gliding silently under arched and elegant stone bridges, there were natural streams winding through the terrain like veins of crystal clear and murmuring water, singing forest secrets to those who knew how to listen to the soft whisper of waters running over smooth and mossy stones, creating a natural symphony that soothed the weary soul of the journey. But the Dutch settlers, with their innate pragmatism and practical spirit forged by generations of struggle against implacable waters and temperamental climate of the homeland, adapted with admirable efficiency and unlimited creativity. They built houses in the traditional and cozy Dutch style, with red brick facades imported or molded locally from fresh clay, steep roofs designed to withstand heavy snowfalls and torrential rains that beat like drums, colored glass windows that filtered the rising sun's light into dancing and colorful patterns on the polished and creaking wooden floor, creating a home that evoked distant memories. They dug smaller and practical canals for drainage and transportation of essential goods, connecting dusty and dirt-beaten streets with the Hudson River that flowed lazily alongside like a faithful and generous companion, its waters reflecting the sky and trees in a liquid mirror. And they erected windmills to grind fresh and nutritious grains, their arms turning with the steady east wind, echoing the familiar and nostalgic sound of the homeland, the hum of wooden gears conveying a sense of continuity and stability amid the radical and exciting change. They were creating, brick by brick, canal by canal, a little Holland on the other side of the ocean, a familiar and comforting island in a sea of absolute and challenging strangeness, where languages mixed in noisy and lively markets with the sound of bargains and laughter, where the smells of fresh bread baked in clay ovens intertwined with the earthy and spicy aroma of local tobacco harvested from nearby and fertile fields, where children ran through dirt streets laughing in melodic Dutch, while playing with cloth balls made by busy and skilled mothers, their laughter echoing like a reminder of innocence that transcends oceans and borders. The Sinterklaas celebrations continued in this promised and abundant new land, but began to change subtly and organically, like a river that branches upon encountering new fertile and rich terrain, adapting to local realities with the same resilience and ingenuity that the settlers displayed in every aspect of their daily and challenging lives, transforming the tradition into something unique and hybrid. There was no speculars imported from the traditional and cozy bakeries of Amsterdam. The spices were rare and too expensive for everyday and festive cookies, costing a small fortune in sweaty and scarce copper coins brought by ships that crossed dangerous seas. So families adapted recipes with abundant and fresh local ingredients, creating variations that honored the past while embracing the present. Sweet and viscous honey, harvested from wild bees, buzzing in hives hidden in nearby and dense forests, American nuts crunchy and earthy instead of delicate and imported European almonds, flour ground from native grains that gave a rustic and authentic flavor to the sweets, a taste that evoked the vigorous new land, mixing the familiar with the exotic in a delicious harmony. The gifts were also different and improvised, shaped by initial scarcity and innate and inspired creativity. Instead of delicate toys imported from Europe with fine mechanisms and shiny paints that enchanted children with their delicacy, the children received handmade items with infinite love and patience. cloth dolls sewn by mothers in the light of flickering and warm candles, with simple button eyes and hair of wool dyed with natural dyes extracted from local plants. Wooden horses carved by fathers during long winter nights when the wind howled outside like a hungry wolf, and the fire in the fireplace was the only faithful and warm companion, wood shavings falling to the floor like soft and silent snow, each knife stroke carving not only wood but dreams of the future. Or simply dried fruits and nuts considered precious treasures in an era where refined sugar was a rare and coveted luxury brought from distant lands by ships that took months to arrive, crossing stormy seas and contrary winds, making each bite an act of gratitude for the abundance of the new land. But then came 1664, and with it an abrupt and inevitable change that would alter the course of these traditions in ways no one could foresee or imagine, like an unexpected and powerful wave that alters the flow of a tranquil and serene river, introducing new elements that would enrich or challenge the legacy. English warships appeared on the harbour horizon like imposing and threatening shadows, their white sails swollen by the constant wind like giant and intimidating ghosts, and after tense but relatively peaceful negotiations, conversations laden with forced diplomacy in smoky and hot rooms, with maps unrolled on sturdy oak tables and pens scribbling surrender terms on yellowed and fragile parchments, Nieuw Amsterdam became New York, named in honor of the Duke of York, brother of the English king, a name that sounded strange and foreign to Dutch ears, but soon became synonymous with opportunity. The Dutch flag, with its orange, white and blue colors fluttering proudly for decades, in varied and unpredictable winds, was lowered with a collective and melancholic sigh. And the English flag, with its red cross on a white background symbolizing power and imperial tradition, was hoisted on the high and visible mast, marking the official change of hands of the colony, a moment that echoed like a funeral bell for the immediate past, but also like the beginning of a new era of cultural fusion. But official changes do not always mean real alterations in the everyday lives of ordinary and resilient people. The Dutch families continued living in their welcoming red brick houses, speaking their melodic and familiar language in markets and kitchens full of steam and homey aromas, practicing their customs with the same quiet and persistent devotion as always, as if the world around could change name and flag, but the heart of the tradition remained unshakable and eternal, an anchor amid the tide of history that flowed incessantly. The English brought their own deep and rooted winter traditions, Christmas celebrations that differed from Dutch practices as day differs from night in intensity and religious focus, marked by elaborate banquets with turkeys roasted until golden and succulent in large and hot ovens, decorating houses with evergreen branches harvested from nearby and dense forests with calloused hands, singing ancient and solemn hymns that echoed in grey and imposing stone churches, their voices rising in harmony to the sky and a deep religious focus on the story of Jesus' birth, with flickering candles illuminating scenes of nativity cribs made of rustic wood and fresh straw, creating an atmosphere of reverence and contemplation that touched the soul. It was an important and solemn celebration, but it lacked the central figure of a magical and personal gift-giver like Sinterklaas. There was Father Christmas, a traditional and robust English folk figure, but he was more an abstract symbol of the collective festive spirit and joy, an ethereal presence that embodied general merriment rather than someone who delivered specific and thoughtful gifts to children, leaving stockings empty or filled with personalized surprises that made eyes sparkle. The two traditions existed side by side in this rapidly growing and multicultural New York, sometimes ignoring each other like distant and reserved neighbors on a busy street, sometimes blending into a hybrid tapestry of customs that enriched community life and created unexpected bonds, with Dutch families inviting English neighbors to Sinterklaas nights around shared and crackling fireplaces, exchanging stories of saints and spirits, while the fire crackled and the air filled with aromas of sweets baking in iron pots, creating ties that transcended linguistic and cultural differences, a testament to the human capacity for adaptation and harmony in new and promising lands, where the past fused with the future in an eternal dance. Think about it as you feel the fatigue of the day dissipating like smoke from a welcoming fireplace, the room becoming a cocoon of peace and reflection. How traditions carried across vast oceans can transform in foreign and fertile soils, but always carrying the essence of generosity that unites people from different origins, inviting us to reflect on our own internal and external migrations, where the unknown becomes familiar through shared memory and collective creativity, weaving a network of connections that time cannot unravel. America in the early 19th century was a country in creative ferment and constant expansion, a young and vibrant nation that stretched like a weaving tapestry, with emerging cities along navigable rivers and vast forests that whispered secrets of freedom and possibility, where the air carried the fresh smell of newly cut wood in noisy sawmills and the distant sound of hammers striking constructions that promised a prosperous and united future. Imagine yourself now, breathing slowly as you close your eyes, feeling the crisp air of New York on a December night in 1823, the gentle wind carrying light snowflakes like goose feathers, falling silently over slate roofs and irregular cobblestone streets, creating a white and pure blanket that muffled the city's sounds, transforming the world into a place of quietude and subtle enchantment. Clement Clarke Moore, a professor of literature and theology in New York, lived in a modest but cozy house in the Chelsea neighborhood, a red brick residence with tall windows that filtered the flickering light of candles, where the interior was filled with the comforting aroma of ancient books stacked on polished oak shelves and the soft crackle of a fireplace in an intimate living room, a refuge where the mind could wander freely among yellowed pages and deep thoughts on human nature and cultural tradition. Moore was a man of interesting and enriching contrasts, a scholar versed in ancient languages like Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, whose days were dedicated to classes in worn wooden desks and attentive students jotting notes in simple paper notebooks, discussing classical texts that explored themes of morality and imagination, but also a devoted father to a growing family, with children who filled the house with joyful laughter and curious questions about the world around them, turning evenings into moments of stories and songs that soothed restless minds before sleep. On Christmas Eve, 1823, with snow falling outside like a soft and silent veil, Moore sat at his dark mahogany desk, illuminated by a whale oil lamp that cast a golden and flickering light on the blank paper, the goose quill in his hand trembling slightly with sudden inspiration that flowed like a creative river, driven by the desire to create something special for his daughters, who awaited holiday stories with bright and sleepy eyes, and by the spirit of the season that hung in the air like a scent of fresh pine and cinnamon. He wrote quickly, letting the words flow with a poetic and rhythmic naturalness, as if the images materialized from the cold night air, describing a nighttime visit from a jovial and mysterious saint who arrived in a sleigh pulled by agile and personality-filled reindeer, each with names that evoked movement and grace: Dasher for swift speed, Dancer for fluid elegance, Prancer for a light and prancing step. Painting a scene of domestic magic where sleeping children dreamed of surprises in stockings hung by the chimney, and the outside world transformed into a playground of snow and stars. The poem, titled A Visit from Saint Nicholas, and later known as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, was not written for immediate publication or lasting fame, but as a personal and affectionate gift read aloud to the family around the Christmas tree decorated with simple ribbons and lit candles, the sound of Moore's voice echoing softly in the warmed room, creating memories that would engrave themselves in the children's hearts like an eternal and comforting treasure. However, fate had bigger and unexpected plans for this spontaneous creation. The text was shared anonymously in a local newspaper on Christmas Day, 1823, spreading like a gentle breeze through American homes, touching readers with its vivid description of a transformed Saint Nicholas, no longer the austere bishop in simple robes, but a jolly and plump elf, with a white beard like fresh snow and eyes that twinkled like stars, dressed in a soft fur suit dyed red and green, smoking a curved pipe that released rings of smoke like clouds of dream, carrying a sack of handmade toys that promised joy for all well-behaved children, a figure that blended Nicholas's ancient generosity with the playful and accessible spirit of emerging America, inviting everyone to participate in a shared and inclusive tradition. This poem revolutionized the cultural perception of St. Nicholas in a subtle but profound way, humanizing him and making him an integral part of family holidays, where the anticipation of his visit became a ritual of unity and wonder, with families gathered around crackling fireplaces sharing the text aloud, the words flowing like a lullaby that soothed minds and warmed hearts on cold winter nights. Moore, who continued his academic life with classes on classical literature and theology in rooms lit by tall windows, probably never imagined the lasting impact of his composition. He published the poem years later in a book of personal verses, claiming authorship in 1844, but the text had already rooted itself in the collective imagination, influencing illustrations in children's books with images of a smiling and approachable saint, and inspiring generations to recreate the magic in their own homes with stockings hung and stories told at dusk, preserving the essence of generosity that Nicholas had sown centuries before in a distant seaside city. The poem's influence extended beyond the boundaries of literature, shaping customs that became pillars of modern holidays, such as the idea of reindeer as faithful companions and the sleigh as a nighttime delivery vehicle, elements that added a touch of accessible and enchanting fantasy, inviting families to participate actively in the narrative, creating personalized traditions that varied from home to home, but always centered on shared joy and gentle anticipation. Think about it as you settle more deeply, feeling the mattress yield like a soft cloud, the silence of the room deepening like an ocean of peace. How a simple, nighttime creation can echo through time, transforming a historical figure into a symbol of everyday wonder, inviting us to reflect on how our own personal stories can intertwine with larger cultural narratives, weaving a legacy of kindness that endures beyond generations, soothing the mind and nourishing the spirit on tranquil nights. America in the late 19th century was a cauldron of innovation and accelerated social change, a nation pulsing with the rhythm of factories buzzing like industrial beehives and cities growing like vigorous trees under the sun of opportunity, where the air of urban streets mixed with the smell of coal burning in steam locomotives and the distant sound of church bells calling the faithful to seasonal celebrations, creating an environment where tradition intertwined with progress in a dynamic and captivating way. Imagine yourself now inhaling deeply the fresh air of a winter night in New York around 1863, feeling the cold wind carry snowflakes that dance like light confetti in the night sky, falling softly over stone sidewalks and illuminating with the distant glow of gas lamps that projected yellowish halos on Victorian building facades, a scene that evoked both the mystery of the past and the excitement of the emerging future. Thomas Nast, a talented and visionary German-American illustrator, worked in his cramped but inspiring studio in the city, surrounded by stacks of charcoal sketches and ink-stained papers, the air filled with the subtle aroma of graphite and rubber, and the soft sound of his pen scratching on paper, creating images that captured the essence of the era with a precision that transcended mere drawing, making them vivid and memorable for generations. Nast was an artist of striking and profound contrasts. An immigrant who arrived young in America with dreams of cultural impact, contributing to magazines like Harper's Weekly with sharp political caricatures that shaped public opinion on elections and social reforms, but also a loving father who understood the power of images to enchant children, using his art to illustrate stories that warmed hearts on cold nights, transforming the abstract into tangible with skillful and emotion-filled strokes. Inspired by Clement Moore's poem, which had planted the seed of a jovial and accessible figure, Nast began to visualize Saint Nicholas in a more concrete and iconic way in his Christmas illustrations, published annually in the magazine during the 1860s and 1870s, each drawing a step in the visual evolution that solidified the modern image of Santa Claus as a robust and friendly gentleman, with a fluffy and voluminous white beard like freshly fallen snow, cascading in generous curls over a vibrant and padded red coat, adorned with white fur edges that evoked purity and comfort, and a wide belt that accentuated his plump and welcoming silhouette, a figure that seemed straight out of a comforting dream, ready to distribute joys in humble and grand homes alike. In his illustrations, Nast added details that humanized and made the figure relatable and enchanting. Santa Claus was no longer a distant and ethereal saint, but a practical craftsman in his imagined workshop, surrounded by simple wooden tools and handmade toys like cloth dolls and block trains, working under the soft light of lanterns with a satisfied smile that radiated genuine kindness, preparing sacks full of gifts that symbolized not only fun, but the spirit of giving without expecting. Reciprocation, a reflection of Nicholas's original generosity, adapted to the American context of community and progress. He depicted him arriving by sleigh over deep and sparkling snow, pulled by strong and loyal reindeer with curved antlers like natural crowns, cutting through the starry night sky like a benevolent shooting star, landing on icy rooftops with a soft and silent thud, descending the chimney with surprising agility for his stature, filling stockings with juicy oranges, homemade candies, and simple toys that represented accessible joy for all children, regardless of their origin or condition, promoting an inclusive vision that resonated with the values of the rising nation. These images, printed in vivid and accessible colors for the time, spread through homes via magazines and postcards, inspiring families to recreate the scene in their own celebrations, with wide-eyed children awaiting the nighttime visit, creating a visual ritual that strengthened family and community bonds, transforming Christmas into an event of shared imagination and emotional warmth. Nast's influence extended beyond printed pages, shaping holiday visual culture in a lasting and impactful way, with his version of Santa Claus becoming the standard for subsequent artists, who added personal touches but maintained the central elements: the iconic red of the coat, the white beard symbolic of wisdom and purity, and the twinkling gaze of complicity that invited childlike belief, an evolution that humanized the ancient legend of Nicholas, making it an integral part of American identity, where generosity manifested not only in acts, but in images that inspired hope and unity in times of rapid and sometimes uncertain change. Nast continued illustrating until the end of his life, leaving a legacy of art that not only entertained, but educated about eternal values like the importance of giving and receiving with an open heart, elements that echoed the essence of the Bishop of Myra centuries before, adapted for a modern and diversified world. Think about it as you feel the rhythm of your breathing calming like gentle waves on a tranquil beach, the room filling with a deep and restorative peace. How a simple illustration can capture and perpetuate the spirit of a millennial tradition, inviting us to reflect on how the images we create in our minds shape our realities, weaving stories that connect the past to the present in a tapestry of shared wonder, soothing the mind and inviting sleep to arrive with gentleness. If this journey through the history of Santa Claus is touching your heart and helping you relax while learning, subscribe now to Sleeping Times to receive more narratives like this every week. Stories that intertwine fascinating facts with deep tranquility, perfect for restorative sleep and gentle discovery nights. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Where are you watching us from tonight? Perhaps from a bustling city in the heart of America, a peaceful village in Europe, or a cozy corner in some exotic place. And what time is it there now as you settle in to rest? Your comments connect us like a global community of curious dreamers, boosting engagement and helping the algorithm bring more relaxing content to you. Thank you for staying until the end. Your retention makes all the difference in continuing to create these moments of peace and learning. Rest well, and until the next story. The 20th century dawned with promises of technological progress that would fundamentally transform how people lived, worked, and communicated, an era of inventions that seemed straight out of futuristic dreams, accelerating the world at a dizzying and intoxicating speed, where the air of cities filled with the roar of combustion engines and the hum of electrical lines that illuminated nights once dark as pitch. Imagine yourself now, breathing slowly as you close your eyes, feeling the fresh air of a 1920s movie theater, the subtle smell of freshly popped popcorn mixing with the polished wood odor of the seats and the faint aroma of pipe tobacco smoked in the lobby. The sound of a live orchestra filling the space with soft melodies before the projector began to whirl, casting moving images on the large white screen, creating a world of wonders that captivated hearts and minds in an era of rapid and exciting transition. In 1900, most people still traveled by horse or on foot, lit their homes with gas or kerosene lamps that cast flickering shadows on the walls, and had never heard a human voice reproduced by a machine, living at a pace dictated by the sun and the seasons, with long nights filled with stories told around crackling campfires or welcoming fireplaces. But in the following decades, all that would change at a stunning and transformative speed. Automobiles would replace horses, galloping along newly built asphalt roads with a mechanical roar that echoed like the pulse of a new era. Electricity would illuminate entire cities, turning night into day with lamps shining like artificial stars in emerging skyscrapers, and radio would bring distant voices into ordinary living rooms, creating a sense of global proximity that united families around polished wooden sets, listening to news, music, and tales that transcended geographical and cultural borders. It was in this context of accelerated innovation and growing connectivity that the figure of Santa Claus found a new dimension of influence and immortality, entering the era of moving images that would popularize his image on a massive and lasting scale, transforming him from a legend told in words and static drawings into a living and dynamic character that danced on screens, touching hearts in dark rooms filled with eager families and wide-eyed children. The early silent films of the 1910s and 1920s captured the holiday spirit with simple but enchanting short films, where actors, dressed in red and white, portrayed Santa Claus in scenes of gift distribution in snowy villages, the silence of the projection filled only by the live laughter of the audience and the mechanical click of the projector, creating an intimacy that made the public feel part of the narrative, as if the sleigh could land on their own frost-covered rooftops. A milestone came in 1932 with Disney's short animated film Santa's Workshop, where Mickey Mouse and his friends helped Santa in a magical factory full of spinning toys and enchanted gears. The fluid, and colorful animation, bringing life to an imaginary workshop where tiny elves worked with toy hammers and candy belts, the sound of jingling bells and animated laughter filling the air, inspiring children to dream of a world where fantasy became real through the magic of the silver screen. Solidifying the image of a kind and efficient Santa Claus surrounded by loyal helpers that symbolized collaboration and collective joy. The 1940s brought global challenges with World War II, but cinema became a refuge of hope and escapism, and Santa Claus emerged as a symbol of resilience and optimism amid the darkness, especially in the 1947 classic Miracle on 34th Street, a black and white film that told the story of a man claiming to be the real Santa Claus, defending his identity in a courtroom full of skeptics, with touching scenes of a child learning to believe in human kindness through the red and white figure, the sound of sleigh bells echoing like a hymn to childlike faith, and dialogues that balanced light humor with profound messages about the power of imagination and generosity in difficult times, becoming a success that reinforced Santa's image as an ambassador of peace and joy, capable of uniting families divided by war and restoring lost innocence. Television, emerging in the 1950s as a window to the world in American living rooms, expanded this reach with annual holiday specials like the 1965 A Charlie Brown Christmas, where the character Schroeder played simple tunes on a toy piano while Snoopy decorated a small and irregular tree, and Santa Claus was invoked as a reminder that true magic lies in simplicity and friendship. The minimalist animation and philosophical dialogue inviting viewers of all ages to reflect on the meaning of the holidays in an era of growing consumerism, with the sound of falling snowflakes on screen symbolizing purity and renewal. In the 1960s and 1970s, television solidified Santa Claus as an inescapable annual presence, with programs like the 1964 Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a stop-motion animation that told the story of a reindeer rejected for her shining nose, but who saves Christmas by guiding the sleigh through dense fog, the sound of classic songs like Holly Jolly Christmas, echoing in homes warmed by virtual fireplaces, reinforcing themes of acceptance and overcoming that resonated with the social movements of the time, making Santa not just a gift giver, but a compassionate leader who valued diversity in his team of reindeer and elves, a subtle but powerful message of inclusion in a transforming society. The 1980s brought more advanced special effects in films like the 1994 The Santa Claus, where an ordinary man becomes Santa after a comedic accident, exploring the balance between adult skepticism and childlike belief with light humor and scenes of flight over cities lit by holiday lights, the sound of bells and laughter filling the screen, humanizing the figure for a generation growing up with technology and questioning ancient traditions, yet still yearning for the magic of a special night. By the end of the century, media expanded Santa's global reach through international cartoons and Hollywood films that exported the image to distant cultures like the 1993 The Nightmare Before Christmas, a stop-motion animation that played with the dark side of holiday fantasy but reinforced Santa's charm as an icon of pure joy amid chaos, with catchy songs and gothic visuals that mixed fear and wonder, inviting the audience to embrace life's duality while celebrating eternal generosity. This era of moving images not only popularized Santa's physical appearance, the vibrant red, the iconic white beard, the jovial ho ho ho, but also deepened his emotional role, making him a universal comfort in times of change, a beacon of hope that crossed screens to touch real hearts, adapting to technology without losing the essence of kindness that Nicholas had sown centuries before in a seaside city. Think about it as you feel the fatigue dissipating like morning mist, the room transforming into a cocoon of serenity. How moving images can immortalize a legend, inviting us to reflect on how technology amplifies our shared stories, weaving connections that transcend time and space, soothing the mind and preparing sleep for renewed dreams of wonder. The second half of the 20th century witnessed an explosion of commercial creativity that redefined how traditions were celebrated and shared, an era where advertising intertwined with everyday culture like threads in a vibrant and multifaceted fabric, transforming ancient symbols into accessible and omnipresent icons, propelled by the innovation of mass media that connected millions in the blink of an eye. Imagine yourself now, inhaling deeply the nostalgic air of a department store in the 1930s, feeling the subtle scent of artificial pine mixed with the aroma of freshly made candies on gleaming counters, the soft sound of holiday tunes playing on antique gramophones filling the space with comforting melodies, while display windows lit by electric bulbs showcase red and white figures smiling at bundled-up passers-by, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and warmth amid the biting winter cold that nipped at cheeks. The figure of Santa Claus, already solidified by poems, illustrations, and films, found in 1931 an unlikely but transformative partner in the form of an iconic advertising campaign created by Haddon Sundblom for a popular effervescent beverage, which sought to capture the holiday spirit with a warm and inviting image, portraying Santa as a robust and jovial man, relaxing with a chilled bottle after a day of deliveries, his white beard contrasting with the vibrant red of his suit, eyes twinkling with satisfaction and a smile radiating genuine generosity, a representation that humanized the legend and made it an integral part of modern celebrations, associating it with moments of pause and shared joy. Sundblom, a talented illustrator from Chicago with a studio full of canvases and vibrant color palettes, was hired to bring this vision to life, drawing inspiration from classic descriptions but adding personal touches that made Santa relatable and charming. In his annual paintings published in magazines and newspaper ads, he showed him not just as a tireless giver, but as an everyday being who appreciated life's simple pleasures, like a refreshing drink during a well-deserved break, surrounded by curious reindeer peeking through doors of imaginary workshops piled high with colorful toy mountains, or lounging in a padded armchair with a pipe releasing lazy smoke rings, elements that evoked comfort and familiarity, inviting the public to identify with the figure rather than just admire him from afar. This campaign, which lasted over 3 decades, refined Santa's appearance into what we know today. The red coat with white fur trim, the wide black belt accentuating his welcoming silhouette, shiny black boots, and a hat with a pom-pom that bobbed with his contagious ho-ho-ho laugh, a visual evolution that spread through store posters, product packaging, and even street decorations, making him a universal emblem of the holidays, where Nicholas's generosity fused with the post-war American optimism of consumerism, creating a tradition that celebrated both giving and receiving in harmonious balance. Commercialization didn't stop at static advertising. It expanded into live events and interactive experiences that brought Santa closer to people, with the tradition of store Santas emerging in the 1920s in American department stores, where actors in red suits and synthetic beards sat on improvised thrones, surrounded by twinkling artificial trees, listening to the wishes of nervous but excited children, the sound of laughter and whispers filling the air as assistants jotted down requests in notebooks, transforming the myth into a personal interaction that strengthened belief and created lasting family memories, a ritual that spread globally, adapting to local contexts with variations that preserved the essence of joy and attentive listening. In the 1950s, television elevated this to a new level, with holiday ads showing Santa endorsing everyday products, from mechanical toys to hot beverages, but always with a tone of kindness and community, reinforcing his image as a holiday protector who valued quality and sharing, a strategy that not only boosted sales but perpetuated the legend through visual narratives that entered homes like welcome guests. The 1960s brought an era of cultural globalization, with Santa becoming an exported icon through international films and licensed products, like soft and personality-filled plush dolls that children hugged at night, dreaming of adventures in an imaginary North Pole, or illustrated books that told stories of his annual journey, blending ancient folklore with modern touches of adventure and technology, like sleighs equipped with magical radars to track well-behaved children. This commercialization, far from diluting the essence, amplified it, making Santa a symbol of unity in a world divided by borders and differences, where his image appeared in charity campaigns donating toys to needy families, echoing Nicholas's original generosity in concrete acts of solidarity, and in community events that gathered neighbors for parades lit by torches and gentle fireworks, creating bonds that transcended commerce to touch the heart of tradition. By the end of the century, the digital era began to redefine this presence, with online ads and sharing networks allowing virtual customizations of Santa, like apps simulating nighttime visits with personalized messages and animated videos, but always anchored in Sundblom's classic image, preserving continuity while embracing innovation, an evolution that ensured the legend adapted without losing its soul, inviting new generations to participate in a collective narrative of hope and giving. Think about it as you feel the weight of the day dissipating like autumn leaves in the wind, the room becoming a sanctuary of tranquility. How an ancient figure can reinvent itself through modern commerce, inviting us to reflect on how the balance between tradition and innovation enriches our celebrations, weaving a legacy of kindness that resonates in hearts around the world, soothing the mind and inviting sleep into a gentle embrace. If this exploration of Santa's evolution is inspiring you to relax and learn, at the same time, subscribe now to Sleeping Times for more engaging stories every week, narratives that blend captivating history with deep peace, ideal for restorative rest and gentle discovery nights. And share in the comments, where are you enjoying this journey from? Perhaps a bustling metropolis in the United States, a historic city in Europe, or a quiet nook in Asia? What time is it there as you prepare to sleep? Your stories connect us like a global family of curious explorers, boosting engagement and helping bring more calming content to your screen. Thank you for following through to the end. Your dedication to retention motivates us to create more moments of serenity and insight. Sleep well, and see you in the next adventure. The 21st century world is a mosaic of interconnected cultures and shared narratives, a digital and physical sphere where ancient traditions reinvent themselves through glowing screens and instant travel, creating a global tapestry of celebrations that unites continents in a collective embrace of lights and laughter, where the air of cosmopolitan cities fills with the sound of holiday tunes in multiple languages and the scent of exotic spices mixed with fresh pines. Imagine yourself now, breathing slowly as you close your eyes, feeling the fresh air of a public square in Tokyo during the Japanese winter, the gentle wind carrying artificial snowflakes that dance under colorful LED lights, mingling with the aroma of hot chestnuts sold at illuminated stalls, the sound of bells jingling in harmony with traditional songs echoing from speakers, creating an environment where Santa Claus, an imported but enthusiastically embraced figure, integrates with local customs like the fruit-decorated Christmas cake and romantic kurisumasu for couples, a fusion that transforms the Western legend into a unique celebration of light and connection, inviting everyone to participate in a holiday that transcends origins and geographical borders. Santa's globalization began in the 20th century with the expansion of cinema and television, but exploded in the 21st with the internet and social networks, allowing his image to adapt to diverse cultural contexts, becoming a universal symbol of generosity that resonates in homes around the world. From icy cabins in Scandinavia, where he merges with the local julemanden, a wise old man who arrives in a sleigh pulled by wild reindeer through snowy forests, distributing gifts on long solstice nights, the air laden with the smell of hot glögg and freshly baked gingerbread, to a tropical version in Brazil, where the beach Santa appears in ads with red shorts and a white beard, surfing blue waves under the scorching sun, adapting winter magic to a vibrant summer with family barbecues and beach bonfires, the sound of samba mixing with jingle bells in a hybrid cultural symphony that celebrates collective joy and local creativity. In India, he integrates with Diwali or Christian Christmas in urban communities, depicted in colorful murals with red saris and elephants as reindeer, symbolizing prosperity and renewal. While in Australia, the summer Santa relaxes on golden beaches with a sun hat and surf sleigh, handing out ice creams and water toys, a fun inversion that highlights the legend's adaptability to hot climates and outdoor lifestyles, always maintaining the core of kindness that unites families around trees, decorated with shells or paper lanterns. This global expansion is not superficial. It reflects a profound evolution where Santa embodies universal values like empathy and solidarity, appearing in humanitarian campaigns that donate toys to children in disaster-affected areas, like earthquakes or floods, with images of him carrying supply boxes to remote regions, the sound of helicopters and relieved laughter filling the air, echoing Nicholas's original compassion that helped the needy in secret, adapted for a world where media amplifies acts of kindness to inspire collective action. In contemporary pop culture, he is reimagined in films like the 2003 Elf, where a human raised at the North Pole returns to the city to spread joy with contagious enthusiasm, the sound of laughter and holiday songs in snowy New York reinforcing themes of identity and belonging, or in animated series like The Santa Clauses that explore Santa's family legacy, with modern dilemmas like balancing tradition with technology, such as drones delivering gifts instead of reindeer, a narrative that invites the audience to reflect on preserving the spirit in a fast-paced digital age, where text messages replace letters to the North Pole, but the heart of generosity remains unchanged. Digital technology has elevated Santa to a new level of interactivity, with augmented reality allowing children to see his visit through apps on tablets, the sound of ho 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 echoing from speakers as a holographic figure appears in the living room, personalizing messages with names and wishes, creating immersive experiences that strengthen belief in an age of early skepticism, and online games where players help elves prepare Christmas, learning lessons in teamwork and empathy through virtual challenges rewarded with cute reindeer avatars and illuminated workshops. In a post-pandemic world, Santa became a symbol of resilience, with virtual events and contactless deliveries keeping the magic alive during isolations, videos of families gathered on video calls, singing holiday songs with him as a digital host, the sound of shared laughter crossing oceans, reinforcing his ability to unite people in times of separation. An adaptation that honors Nicholas's journey from a local bishop to a global icon that transcends physical and cultural barriers. Looking to the future, Santa will continue evolving with advances like artificial intelligence, creating personalized stories based on children's preferences, or electric vehicles inspired by his sleigh for eco-friendly deliveries, but always anchored in the essence of selfless generosity, inviting us to imagine a world where technology serves humanity, amplifying the legacy of kindness that began in Myra millennia ago, a legend that renews itself without losing its soul, inspiring acts of compassion in an era of instant connections and global challenges. Think about it as you settle more comfortably, feeling the mattress embrace your body like an old friend, the silence of the room deepening like a calm ocean. how a winter figure can become a global ambassador of hope, inviting us to reflect on our own role in perpetuating traditions that unite the world, weaving a future where the magic of generosity illuminates dark nights, soothing the mind and inviting dreams of unity and peace. We live in an era of hyperconnectivity where information flows instantly across continents, allowing a child in Tokyo to watch the same animation as one in São Paulo, and traditions that took centuries to develop can be learned, adopted, and adapted in days, creating a world where Santa Claus has become one of the few truly global symbols, transcending national borders, languages, and even religions, but also raising profound questions about cultural identity, authenticity, and what we lose when unique local practices are overshadowed by homogenized global narratives. Imagine yourself now, breathing slowly as you close your eyes, feeling the air in the room become a soft veil of tranquility, as if time slows down to allow your mind to reflect on how a millennia-old legend, born in a Turkish port city, now illuminates winter nights in every corner of the planet, adapting to diverse contexts without losing its essence of generosity, inviting us to ponder the balance between preservation and evolution in a world that changes every instant. This globalization of Santa Claus began in the 20th century with the expansion of cinema and television, but gained speed in the 21st with digital tools that facilitate instant sharing of images and stories, allowing his figure to adapt to varied cultures, becoming a universal emblem of joy and giving that resonates in homes across all continents, from icy cabins in Scandinavia, where he merges with the local Julemanden, a wise figure who arrives on a sleigh through snow-covered forests, distributing gifts on long solstice nights, the air laden with aromas of hot drinks and spiced breads, to a sunlit version in Brazil, where he appears in beach celebrations with light attire and a white beard, surfing blue waves under the tropical sun, adapting winter magic to a vibrant summer with family barbecues and bonfires on the sand, the sound of rhythmic music blending with traditional songs in a cultural symphony that celebrates local creativity and community unity. In India, he integrates into festivals like Diwali or Christian celebrations in urban communities, depicted in colorful murals with local elements like vibrant fabrics and symbolic animals, representing prosperity and renewal. While in Australia, the Summer Santa relaxes on golden beaches with light accessories and an adapted sleigh, distributing refreshing items and water toys, a fun inversion that highlights the legend's flexibility to warm climates and outdoor lifestyles, always maintaining the core of kindness that unites families around trees decorated with shells or soft lights, promoting values of empathy and sharing in unique contexts. This expansion is not merely superficial, it reflects a profound evolution where Santa Claus embodies universal principles like empathy and solidarity, appearing in initiatives that donate essential items to families in areas affected by natural challenges like floods or droughts, with images of him carrying supplies to remote regions, the sound of relieved voices and grateful laughter filling the air, echoing Nicholas's original compassion that helped the needy in secret, now amplified, to inspire collective actions on a planetary scale, strengthening communities and fostering hope in times of adversity. In contemporary popular culture, he is reimagined in visual productions that explore themes of identity and belonging, like stories where a character raised in a magical world returns to reality to spread joy with enthusiasm, the sound of festive songs in snowy urban settings reinforcing messages of connection and acceptance, or animated narratives that examine the familial legacy of the figure, balancing ancestral values with modern innovations like sustainable methods for annual journeys, inviting audiences of all ages to reflect on how to preserve the spirit of giving in an era of accelerated pace, where quick messages replace traditional letters. but the heart of generosity remains unshakable, nurturing emotional bonds that transcend generations. Digital technology has elevated Santa Claus to an unprecedented level of interactivity, with immersive experiences allowing young people to encounter his visit through tools on portable devices, the sound of youthful laughter echoing in domestic spaces as virtual figures personalize messages with affectionate details, creating moments that strengthen belief in an age of early questioning, and collaborative games where participants assist helpers in preparing celebrations, learning lessons of cooperation and understanding through challenges rewarded with cute elements and illuminated scenarios, promoting positive values in a playful way. In a post-global challenges world like periods of collective isolation, Santa Claus emerged as a symbol of resilience, with remote events and safe exchanges keeping the magic alive. Narratives of families gathered in shared calls, singing traditional melodies with him as a virtual host, the sound of affectionate connections crossing distances, reinforcing his ability to unite people in moments of separation, an adaptation that honors Nicholas's trajectory from a local guide to an icon that overcomes physical and cultural barriers, inspiring optimism and mutual support in varied contexts. However, this globalization also brings challenges that deserve careful reflection, such as the economic pressure some families feel to create elaborate experiences or questions about honesty when introducing fantastical narratives to children, dilemmas that each family group resolves according to their principles, focusing on connection experiences rather than material items, or emphasizing gratitude and simplicity to cultivate lasting values, adaptations that keep the tradition relevant and meaningful amid social and economic changes, promoting a balance between fantasy and reality that nurtures emotional development. Commercialization, while amplifying visibility, can generate tensions by prioritizing consumption over essence, but families and communities find ways to redefine celebrations, emphasizing relationships and acts of collective kindness, like exchanges of reusable items or community events that strengthen local bonds, ensuring the legend remains a vehicle for empathy rather than mere transaction, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt traditions to contemporary contexts without losing their depth. Looking to the future, Santa Claus will continue evolving with innovations that respect his root, creative tools generating personalized narratives for young minds, eco-friendly options inspired by legendary journeys for responsible exchanges, or virtual spaces where collaborative elements build harmony scenarios, but always anchored in selfless kindness, inviting a vision where ancestral values inspire modern actions of broad solidarity, combating isolations with digital bonds, and preserving childlike wonder in accelerated rhythms, a horizon that balances progress with preservation, ensuring the magic of generosity illuminates collective paths for generations to come. This is a mirror of humanity's ability to convert compassion into eternal heritage, from a bishop in Myra to an emblem that warms cold nights globally, reminding us that the true essence lies in simple acts of sharing, which resonate through time like an affectionate murmur in the breeze, nurturing spirits and weaving hearts into a tapestry of infinite optimism, encouraging each individual to contribute with daily actions that perpetuate this virtuous cycle of empathy and shared joy. Think about it as you feel each muscle relax, the weight of your head sinking into the soft pillow like a cloud at sunset, the room turning into a cocoon of total peace where ideas glide like a serene stream. How an ancestral narrative can transform to motivate billions, inviting us to meditate on our potential for affection, intertwining personal stories with greater tales, soothing the restless mind and calling rest as an old companion, full of visions of sharing and global harmony, where Nicholas's legacy persists, perennial and inviting, guiding toward a more solidary and united tomorrow. If this reflection on Santa Claus's journey is bringing serenity to your night and expanding your historical view, subscribe now to Sleeping Times for similar narratives every week. Stories that blend intriguing facts with deep calm, ideal for restorative nights of sleep and gentle learning. And in the comments, share. Where are you tuning into this narrative from? Perhaps from a lit city in the US, a charming village in Europe, or a tropical oasis in Asia. What time is it there as you settle in for bed? Your stories connect us like a global network of eager explorers, boosting engagement and helping the algorithm deliver more soothing content to your screen. Thank you for joining until the end. Your presence motivates us to craft more of these refugees of peace and insight. Rest deeply, and until the next odyssey through time. As the setting sun tints the horizon with shades of orange and pink, marking the end of another seasonal cycle, it is natural for our mind to return to the starting point of this extraordinary journey, closing the circle that began over 1,700 years ago in a small city on the edge of the Aegean Sea, where a man named Nicholas chose to live a life of quiet service and unpretentious generosity, an act that, like a stone thrown into a serene lake, created ripples that would propagate through centuries, crossing oceans, continents, and technological eras, to return to us today as a symbol of renewed hope and deep human connection, inviting us to see how the past and present intertwine in an eternal pattern of kindness that transcends time. Imagine yourself now, inhaling deeply the fresh air of the sunset, feeling the room fill with a soft golden light filtering through the curtains, as if the sun itself were whispering the secret that every story, no matter how long, eventually completes itself, forming a perfect circle where beginning and end touch, nourishing the soul with the certainty that simple acts of compassion can generate immeasurable legacies, guiding us back to our roots while we look to tomorrow's horizon. This narrative we have explored, from Nicholas's anonymous acts in Myra, where pouches of gold saved families from poverty on dark and silent nights, the sound of coins hitting the earthen floor, echoing like a vow of hope, to the sacred relocation of his relics to Bari in 1087, a sea voyage full of dangers and miracles that spread his devotion across Europe, transforming him into a protector of travelers and children, leads us to realize how the circle begins with an individual act of empathy, expanding through cultural migrations and local adaptations, like the 17th century Dutch Sinterklaas, carried by immigrants on ships cutting through the Atlantic, taking root in American colonies where it blended with indigenous and European traditions, resisting political changes to flourish in New York as a fusion of resilience and optimism, a testament to how kindness travels not just in sacred bones, but in human hearts that perpetuate it across generations, adapting it to new soils, without losing its pure and selfless essence. The 19th century, with its romantic poetry and vivid illustrations, added layers of imagination to the circle, with words painting a nighttime visitor in a starry sleigh and strokes giving form to a jolly figure with a white beard, humanizing the legend so it became accessible to all families, hanging stockings by the chimney as a ritual of shared anticipation, echoing Nicholas's secret acts in domestic celebrations that united homes around crackling fireplaces, the aroma of pine and cinnamon, filling the air as a reminder that generosity is the thread that sews the fabric of community, strengthening bonds in an era of industrial expansion and social changes where tradition served as an anchor of emotional stability. The moving image era of the 20th century accelerated the circle's spin, with productions bringing Santa to life on screens, illuminating dark rooms, the fluid motion of reindeer and magical workshops mixing with collective laughter sounds, narratives reinforcing acceptance and simplicity in times of global conflict, making him a beacon of optimism, uniting distant viewers, completing the arc by transforming a local story into a shared experience, transcending geographical barriers, promoting values of inclusion and joy in a constantly changing society. The commercialization of the late 20th century and the digital age of the 21st closed the circle with a global expansion that returns to the origin of anonymous kindness, now amplified by interactive experiences and community initiatives, where friendly figures listen to children's wishes in seasonal events, creating memories echoing Barry's miracles, or virtual tools personalize visits with affectionate messages, the sound of festive elements echoing in remote homes, adapting the legend to diverse cultures, from sunny beach celebrations to icy mountain rituals, always anchored in the empathy Nicholas exemplified, inspiring solidarity actions like donations for needy families, the sound of collective gratitude filling empty spaces of adversity, proving the circle completes when generosity returns multiplied, nourishing communities in an interconnected world where each individual act contributes to a greater whole, balancing tradition with innovation to preserve wonder amid contemporary challenges like isolations and economic pressures. This circle is not rigid or closed, it is dynamic and expansive, inviting us to participate actively, reflecting on how we can emulate Nicholas in our daily lives, with simple gestures like helping a neighbor or sharing an inspiring story, perpetuating the legacy in a future where innovations like personalized narratives and sustainable exchanges honor the essence of selfless giving, combating divisions with empathy bonds, and preserving childlike wonder in accelerated rhythms, an optimistic vision where the past illuminates the present, guiding us to a tomorrow of deeper connections and collective acts of kindness, strengthening the global social fabric. Think about it as you feel the day's fatigue dissipate like morning mist, the room transforming into a sanctuary of peace where life's cycle reveals itself in serene beauty. How a journey that began in Myra returns to us enriched, inviting us to close our own circle with acts of generosity that echo eternally, soothing the mind and inviting sleep into a restorative embrace, filled with dreams where kindness unites the world in infinite harmony. If this conclusion on Santa's cycle is closing your nightly journey with serenity and inspiration, subscribe now to Sleeping Times for more engaging narratives every week. Stories weaving historical facts with deep tranquility, perfect for invigorating rest nights and gentle discovery. And in the comments, tell us, where are you completing this circle from? Perhaps a dynamic city in the US, a peaceful locality in Europe, or a serene refuge in Asia. What time is it there as you settle in to rest? Your shares unite us like a global community of reflective thinkers, boosting engagement and helping bring more soothing content to you. Thank you for traveling with us to the end. Your retention encourages us to create more of these harmonious closure moments and insight. Rest in peace, and until the next cycle of stories. As the cycle of seasons renews once more, with leaves falling like golden confetti in autumn and soft snow covering the ground like a mantle of purity in winter, it is the perfect moment to pause and reflect on the most enduring gift that Nicholas of Myra's journey has left us. Not a package wrapped with colorful ribbons, but a living legacy of generosity that continues to bear fruit in every act of kindness we inspire and perform, a gift that multiplies with each generation, crossing time, barriers to touch hearts in the present and illuminate future paths, inviting us to see how a life dedicated to quiet service can become an eternal beacon of hope and deep human connection. Imagine yourself now inhaling deeply the pure air of the day's end, feeling the room enveloped in a welcoming quietude, as if the universe itself were whispering that the true gift of tradition lies not in material objects, but in the ability to perpetuate cycles of empathy and joy, nourishing weary souls and strengthening communities in a world yearning for more light amid everyday shadows, guiding us to embrace this gift as an invitation to continue its essence in our own lives. This reflection takes us back to the heart of the story we have woven through these chapters, Nicholas's discreet acts in Myra, where anonymous donations saved families from financial ruin on quiet nights, the soft sound of generosity falling like beneficial rain on arid soils, planting seeds that would germinate into European devotion, with relics transported to Bari in 1087, becoming a source of miracles attracting faithful from distant lands, transforming a local saint into a universal, protector of travelers and youth, an initial gift that expanded through 17th century migrations, when Dutch immigrants carried Sinterklaas to American colonies, rooting it in family rituals, blending cultures in emerging streets, resisting historical transitions to flourish as a tradition of resilience and unity, where the spirit of giving became the thread linking past to present, inspiring celebrations that honored not just winter, but community strength in times of change, a gift that continued to give by fostering lasting bonds in new and challenging soils. In the 19th century, poetry and visual art wrapped this gift in layers of accessible imagination, with poetic descriptions of a nighttime visitor in a celestial sleigh and illustrations giving form to a friendly figure with a white beard, making the legend a domestic ritual where families hung stockings with anticipation, echoing Nicholas's secret gestures in moments of shared joy around warm fireplaces, the aroma of spices and burning wood filling the air as a reminder that generosity is the essential ingredient for family harmony, a gift renewing in each generation, adapting to industrial and social contexts to nurture emotional stability and collective creativity. The visual era of the 20th century accelerated this gift's flow, with moving narratives bringing Santa to life on screens illuminating homes, the motion of reindeer and enchanted workshops mixing with unified laughter sounds, stories emphasizing simplicity and inclusion in periods of global challenges, transforming a local heritage into a shared gift uniting diverse perspectives, promoting optimism and empathy in an evolving society where each viewing served as a reminder that kindness continues to give by inspiring positive actions in viewers from all corners. The commercial and digital expansion of the late 20th and early 21st centuries unwrapped this gift for the whole world, with interactive experiences and community initiatives allowing children to express wishes to welcoming figures in seasonal events, creating memories echoing ancestral miracles, or virtual tools personalizing affectionate messages. The sound of festive elements resonating in remote spaces, adapting the tradition to varied cultures, from warm celebrations on golden sands to cold rituals on snowy peaks, always centered on the empathy Nicholas lived, inspiring solidarity gestures like support for needy families, the sound of collective gratitude echoing in moments of mutual aid, proving the gift continues to give by multiplying into actions, strengthening interconnected communities, balancing innovation with tradition to keep wonder alive amid challenges like distances and daily pressures, a virtuous cycle where each individual contribution enriches the whole. This gift is not static. It is an active invitation to continue the cycle, reflecting on how we can incorporate Nicholas's generosity into daily routines, with gestures like extending a hand to a friend or sharing an encouraging word, perpetuating the legacy in a future where personalized creations and sustainable practices honor selfless giving, combating isolations with bonds of affection, and preserving innocence in fast rhythms, and hopeful perspective where the past enriches the present, guiding us to a tomorrow of authentic connections and collective acts of kindness, weaving a stronger and more compassionate social fabric. Think about it as the fatigue dissolves like dew in the rising sun, the room becoming a refuge of serenity where life's gift reveals itself in continuous grace. How a heritage that began in Myra returns multiplied, inviting us to unwrap our own gift of generosity that continues to give, soothing the spirit and inviting sleep into a restorative embrace, filled with visions where kindness flows eternally, uniting the world in an infinite gift of peace and joy. If this final reflection on Santa's continuing gift is concluding your night with tranquility and motivation, subscribe now to Sleeping Times for more inspiring stories every week. Narratives intertwining eternal lessons with deep peace, ideal for restorative sleep nights and gentle insights. And in the comments, share. Where are you receiving this gift of reflection from? Perhaps a vibrant urban center in the US, a serene village in Europe, or a cozy nook in Asia? What time is it there as you prepare to rest? Your accounts connect us like a global family of kindness seekers, increasing engagement and helping deliver more calming content to you. Thank you for opening this gift to the end. Your dedication to retention drives us to create more of these treasures of serenity and wisdom. Sleep well, and until the next gift of story.